This video is about making a finial for a garden tower that we did on the Woodsmith Shop TV show. In that episode, Logan turned one that looks really great for on the top of it. If you're not a turner, don't have a lathe, you can still get a great looking finial, and it requires a little bit of work at the bandsaw. But this video is also about choosing the right methods to lay out, draw, and then shape something that's complex like this finial. Now the starting point for this is the patterns that come with the plans. You just print it off. Now the easiest thing to do is to take the pattern, cut it out, and use some spray adhesive and attach it to the face of your finial blank. Actually, you're going to need two of them because you're going to have to put one on one face and one on the other face in order to be able to cut out this fully three-dimensional shape. Now, using spray adhesive like this can get a little sticky and tricky because you have to get those pieces arranged on here just right. So another option is to take that pattern, cut it out, and apply it to some 1/4-inch hardboard or MDF. Now this is the kind of thing that we do if we're going to create multiples of a part, because we can use the hardboard template now to trace the shape on our workpiece, cut it out, and then come back with a router and a flush trim bit and clean up those edges. Now with something like this finial, because of its final shape, it's not really going to work that way. Hardboard also works great if you know that you're going to make multiples of these down the road. You can keep the template and then you don't have to go through the whole printout, cutting, shaping process again. Now for this one, because we can't use hardboard, well, we could, but it's not necessary. I wanted something that was a little bit more durable, so I created the pattern on some thick cardstock. What's nice about this is that it's pretty low cost and it's durable enough that if I want to hold on to this for building one down the road, I can still do that. The paper is thick enough that I can now trace along the profile. To lay out what the shape of my finial is going to be, I need to do that on both of these faces. And if I want to keep this, I can put it in the drawer in my shop along with the other patterns that I hold on to. So once I get this face traced out, let's head to the bandsaw. The cutting process for making our finial occurs in two different steps. Step one is the most straightforward. I'm going to lop off this end here, and then I'm going to just follow along the outline of the shape that I drew on this workpiece. The key here, though, is I want to make sure that I leave my pencil lines. Those are going to be important for making sure that this finial doesn't end up too small when I go through the refining step back at the bench a little bit later. Now you want to make sure that you have a bandsaw blade installed that will be able to follow your curves, because you want to do this in smooth, fluid passes as you make each of these cuts. Now down here where this tight part is, I'm going to come in from both directions, kind of meet in the bottom of the valley. It's not going to look the greatest right here, but again, I'm going to use hand tools later on to refine that shape. With our first stage of cutting, we're well on our way to getting a nice pleasing shape for this finial. However, you'll notice a couple of things. First, while we have our dimension in this direction, we still need to worry about this, and we've also lost all of our guidelines that we traced on here. The solution comes in two parts. First is we'll take our waste pieces, and this is why you want to be careful with the sawing, and I can just fit those back into place on our blank here, and I'm going to secure them with a couple of strips of masking tape. I know what I need to do in order to be able to connect these lines again, but sometimes it helps to just bring our paper pattern back into play here and retrace those lines over the top of the tape. Then it feels a little bit less like a dot to dot. So our lines are back. Now the issue is that we have a little bit of a wobble in the piece that's going to be tough to control when we're making these cuts. So on the bottom side, I'm going to bring those other pieces and tape those back into place. There we go. We have a stable, although a little cobbled together blank here that looks very similar to what we started with. The cutting process is now going to be the same, following along those lines, staying just to the outside of them. This is where the magic happens. As you cut, these pieces are going to start to fall away, and like peeling a banana at the bandsaw, you're left with the finial that's on the inside of all of these parts. Careful work at the bandsaw gives us the rough outline of the profile of our finial. Over here at the bench, we're going to take some hand tools and give it the shape that you want. And the nice part is that this part allows you to kind of play around a little bit and make it a little bit more custom. We don't have our guidelines here anymore, but we kind of know where we're headed. So what I'm going to do is use a variety of tools, pretty common ones, that will allow us to work here. The other thing is that we're working with cedar. It's an outdoor material, and one of what I call the superhero woods is because it cuts really easily, so you feel like a pro while you're working. I'm starting with a chisel, and I want to clean up this valley here on the lower part of the finial. So I'm using the chisel bevel down and making some scoop cuts to clear away some of the waste where I made the relief cuts with the bandsaw blade. You can come in from both directions, and you're pivoting off that bevel on the chisel. That clears away most of the material. Next up, I want to blend that in, remove the remaining blade marks that are there. For that, I'm using a rasp. This one has a flat on one side, half round on the other. That will allow me to be able to follow along. So as I stroke the rasp forward, I'm also going to pivot it and follow along the curve, coming down into the valley from this direction, and then the same thing back across to this direction. I can use those straight blade marks in here as a reference so that once I get past those, I know that my work here is done. With the lower portion finished, I want to start to shape this waist section of the finial and blend it more into a rounded profile rather than the squared off. And I'm going to start again with the chisel. This time I'm going to work bevel up, making slicing cuts, trying to blend it with a series of facets going down this way into this lower section and then working across the grain into this direction. If you go across the grain, for the most part, with a sharp chisel, you can get a nice smooth cut. I'm using the chisel to remove most of the waste. Now, because I have a little bit more clearance, I'm switching to a larger rasp. And again, I'm going to make cuts to blend this into a rounded shape. All the sawdust and the blade marks left by the rasp can be a little fooling to your eye, so you want to just check it with your fingertips to see if you can find any places where there are lumps and bumps that you want to remove. Now I can also continue to work down the length of the finial, working towards the end. When I have a uniform scratch pattern, all the bandsaw blade marks are gone, and I'm just left with the rasp marks, then I switch to a half-round file and do the same thing, working all of these surfaces before switching to sandpaper. There we go. I like where this is headed. 3 more faces to go. As you're working along, you can use the surface left by one face to help you gauge your work on the other one as you smooth it to a nice, even profile. I'll get started on all of that. We'll come back and see what it looks like when it's all done. Well, there we have it. I finished off with some 150 grit adhesive back sandpaper that I folded over on itself just to put the final surface on the finial. And when you compare it to the turned one, you can see we have 2 great looks to cap off a fantastic outdoor project. You know, along the way, we also learned about using templates and patterns to create complex shapes, and how nice it is to have a good bandsaw. Thanks for watching.